You were very vocal about the redistricting. For someone who's watching, can you give us a breakdown of how that would affect us this election?
Sure. So in the state of Florida, we have roughly about 14 million voters. And those 14 million voters are broken down, and I'll give you an approximation. It's 5.5 million Republicans, 4.2 million Democrats, and 3.3 million independents. And in this state, what was happening with redistricting is that they said during our map discussion that they took partisan information and data into consideration when they drew those maps. The problem with that is that in those numbers, of the 5.5 million Republicans, 90% of them are white. Of the Democrats, 80 to 90% of them are black. Of the independents, 50% of them are Hispanic and the others are black and other, right? So if you look at that and you say, I'm taking partisan into consideration, party into consideration, right? And I'm not looking at race at all. It's impossible for you to say you don't look at race, because if you're choosing to draw a district with Republicans, then you know that they're more than likely going to be white based on the numbers. If you look to draw a district based on Democrats, you know that the majority of them are going to be black. So when you take a map and you draw it to where you dilute black votes, Hispanic votes, and white votes, and you put more white votes in a district, you make the district either purple or you make it very red. You have now disenfranchised a group of voters. And you do this throughout the state so that you can get what you want. But there's certain areas where you can only do it so much. So they have gone through the state of Florida and they have used this partisan data to create a map that favors Republican voters. But in doing that, they have diluted the Hispanic and other, as well as the black vote. So there's very limited capacity in that map for minority representation. And so you took a state that has historically, based on demographics and the data that we previously used, you took a state that was purple and blue in certain counties, and then you diluted those votes. And so now you're seeing a map where you have red everywhere because they have taken and cut up these votes. This happened for Broward County, which is the second largest voting population in the state, Orange County, which is the fourth, which is the Orlando Seminole area, and Dade County, which is the largest area in the state. And Palm Beach County was not really that affected by it because they ended up in this compressed area where they couldn't change much else because they had come from the bottom and worked their way to the top, and they came from the top and worked to the bottom. And so they caught the four largest counties, and 3 out of the 4 they were able to gerrymander this map to make it fit their needs. And so the reason why I was so vocal about that is because we have come from a time in the Jim Crow South where we were maimed, beaten, oppressed, and our voting rights were taken away because of the color of our skin. And here we are in this century, in this time where our ancestors have already fought and died, where there would have never been a moment where you could say that black girl from Miami became the first African-American female mayor in 100 years. The fact that it took 100 years for that to happen should tell you something about the political climate and about the racism and oppression that still exist. See, people don't come out and say it. It's that thing that people never say.
Yep, it's the elephant in the room.
They will never say to you that there's slavery and oppression now. Because, see, people think slavery was abolished and that it doesn't exist, but it does exist. It's just a type of corporate slavery now. The corporate slavery comes from low-paying jobs, keeping people in high immigrant population communities, communities of color, from being able to reach their highest potential. It comes in the form of taking away tuition reimbursement and tuition rates for in Florida residents. It comes from taking away tuition rates for residents that you think are immigrants. It comes from Black people and brown people having to work 3 jobs in order to afford to live here and not having good educational opportunities. You see, we have this cycle called generational poverty, and we have this place where people fall because they don't know any better. So I would say, hey, my mom and my dad worked 3 jobs and they put a roof over our head, and I went to public school and I can't go to college because my parents can't pay for college. And then you have people that their parents came from another country and said, we're seeking the American dream here. And yes, we came here illegally, but we stayed and they gave us paperwork. And now you're born and you're an American citizen. What does that mean? Well, some of the people on the other side feel like, okay, well, it doesn't matter. They came here illegally, so you shouldn't have gotten anything anyway. And so
people really think like that?
Absolutely, they do. And so you shouldn't have anything anyway because your parents didn't come here illegally. And while we feel for you, but your parents, you're going to pay the cost for what your parents did. And that thought process has really emanated and kind of infiltrated where we were as a society 4 years ago. 4 years ago, people kept talking about things were correcting themselves and everything was okay. And we were moving toward a more equal opportunity system here in America. But it was never equal for education and housing. It's never been equal. And it's still not equal now. I don't know if it'll ever be equal with the changes that are happening. But that is what is happening with the redistricting process. We are moving backwards in terms of taking away people's rights, taking away people's voice, taking away the meshing of cultures, segregating history, making it like history didn't happen. And so that's what happened with that map. And that's why I was speaking out, because my ancestors died for that. They died for the opportunity for me to be where I am today. They died for the opportunity for a Black woman to walk into a bank and sign on the dotted line and say, I got great credit and I'm going to buy a building.
Right.
And so we are in a place where we're going backwards. And how backwards we go, I don't know, but it's not good.
So hearing that, someone who's watching, as a Floridian, what can... If someone say, hey, what can I do about this? What can they do about it?
Well, what they can do is get out and vote.
Okay.
What frustrates me about being in the political space, I hear people talk about disenfranchisement, talk about being upset with the way politics is, but they won't go to the poll and vote. So I always use this example. In an election, if 40% of the people show up to vote and 60% of the people stay home, my voice as one of the 40% of the people that voted counts more than once. Because you're letting me vote for you. You're letting me speak for you. Now, while I only go and cast one vote, that one vote is counting 3 times because you're letting me make the decision for you. So if you don't educate yourself about who's on the ballot and whether or not that candidate has some of what you're looking for, and you vote for whoever has the most of what you're looking for, you're essentially giving away your right to speaking out. You're essentially giving away your voice. And a lot of people in our Black and brown community do not understand that. I ran into young folks that say, I hate Democrats, I hate Republicans, because they're all fighting and they're so extreme. And I want to be in between. I want to be an independent. And they'll say, I'm not voting in this election. I choose not to vote for president. Well, guess what? You chose not to vote. So when you get whatever you get, you get it. Because don't come to me complaining, because I vote in every election. I'm a super voter. When you look at the age, and I always ask people this, how old do you think the best super voter is? What do you think the average age of a super voter is?
Average age of a super voter?
At least above the age of 40.
60?
Keep going.
70?
Yes. So the average age of a person that's determining the majority of the elections is 70 years old. Do you understand?
I understand.
Why people are not getting what they want? So if you're letting the average age of 70 decide and determine who who is your senator, your House rep, your United States congressperson, your United States senator, the president of the United States, your local elected official. It's your fault that that is happening. They have different opinions and different views. If you want to introduce something new into the political spectrum, then you must go out and make a choice. You must make your voices heard. You have to hold people accountable for what they do on the campaign trail. You can't put your head in the sand and say, I don't want to do that. I don't want to vote. So when we look at those dynamics, remember, I told you the average age of the super voter is 70, right? Mm-hmm. What is the average age of the person that votes in a special election or a primary election for a city race, a municipal race on an off election cycle? So that's a March election.
You said what is the average age?
Average age. Give me the average age.
80?
Yes.
80 years old.
Yes.
And so usually less than 10% turnout.
Yes, because they're 80. So think about that and put that in perspective. So if the age of the people who are dedicated to voting is 80 in a special election or in a city municipal race that occurs in March, who's going to decide for you? And you can't be upset because they decided to go vote.
Correct.
You didn't go vote. And so those are the things that people need to understand about voting. You're not going to agree 100% with what the person is doing or saying. You're not going to get everything that you want in one candidate. But what you can do is educate yourself enough so that you know who you're voting for.
Thanks.
And that is our responsibility. And we are failing miserably at that responsibility as a younger generation.